The Book of Joshua, Chapter 1. Now it happened after the death of Moses the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread on, I have given it to you, as I spoke to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even to the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your border. There shall not any man be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, to observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate thereon day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Don't be afraid, neither be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the midst of the camp, and command the people, saying, Prepare food, for within 3 days you are to pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God gives you to possess. To the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, saying, The Lord your God gives you rest, and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall abide in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But you shall pass over before your brothers armed, all the mighty men of valor, and shall help them, until the Lord have given your brothers rest, as he has given you. And they also have possessed the land which the Lord your God gives them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and possess it, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you, beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise. They answered Joshua, saying, All that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. According as we listened to Moses in all things, so we will listen to you. Only the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever he be who shall rebel against your commandment, and shall not listen to your words in all that you command him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. Chapter 2. Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men as spies secretly, saying, Go, view the land and Jericho. They went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and lay there. It was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in here tonight of the children of Israel to search out the land. The king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men who are come to you, who have entered into your house, for they have come to search out all the land. The woman took the 2 men and hid them, and she said, Yes, the men came to me, but I didn't know where they were from. And it happened about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Where the men went out I don't know. Pursue after them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof, and hid them with the stalks of flax which she had laid in order on the roof. The men pursued after them all the way to the Jordan, to the fords. And as soon as those who pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. Before they were laid down, she came up to them on the roof, and she said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you is fallen on us, and that all of the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you, when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites, who are beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and to Og, whom you utterly destroyed. As soon as we had heard it, our hearts did melt, neither did there remain any more spirit in any man, because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above, and on earth beneath. Now therefore please swear to me by the Lord, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you will also deal kindly with my father's house, and give me a true token, and that you will save alive my father, and my mother, and my brothers, and my sisters, and all that they have, and will deliver our lives from death. The men said to her, Our life or yours, if you don't utter this our business, and it shall be, when the Lord gives us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you. Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was on the side of the wall, and she lived on the wall. She said to them, Go to the mountains, lest the pursuers find you, and hide yourselves there 3 days, until the pursuers come back, and afterwards you may go on your way. The men said to her, We will be guiltless of this your oath which you have made us to swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which you let us down by, and you shall gather to you into the house your father and your mother, and your brothers and all your father's household. It will be that whoever will go out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood will be on his head, and we will be guiltless. And whoever will be with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be on him. But if you utter this our business, then we will be guiltless of your oath which you have made us to swear. She said, According to your word, so be it. She sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. They went and came to the mountain, and abode there 3 days, until the pursuers were returned. And the pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but didn't find them. Then the 2 men returned, and descended from the mountain, and passed over, and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they told him all that happened to them. They said to Joshua, Truly the Lord has delivered into our hands all the land, and moreover, all the inhabitants of the land do melt away before us. Chapter 3. Joshua rose up early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and they lodged there before they passed over. It happened after 3 days, that the officers went through the midst of the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall remove from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Don't come near to it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way before. Joshua said to the people, Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant, and pass over before the people. They took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. The Lord said to Joshua, This day will I begin to magnify you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When you are come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. Joshua said to the children of Israel, Come here, and hear the words of the Lord your God. Joshua said, Hereby you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Hivite, and the Perizzite, and the Girgashite, and the Amorite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passes over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, for every tribe a man. It will come to pass when the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, even the waters that come down from above, and they will stand in one heap. It happened when the people removed from their tents to pass over the Jordan, the priest who bore the ark of the covenant being before the people, and when those who bore the ark were come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priest who bore the ark were dipped in the brink of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks all the time of harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood, and rose up in one heap a great way off, at Adam, the city which is by Serathon. And those that went down towards the sea of the Arabah, even the salt sea, were wholly cut off, And the people passed over right against Jericho. The priest who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel passed over on dry ground, until all the nation were passed clean over the Jordan. Chapter 4. It happened, when all the nation were clean passed over the Jordan, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man, and command them, saying, Take out of the midst of the Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and carry them over with you, and lay them down in the lodging place where you shall lodge this night. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel out of every tribe a man. And Joshua said to them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and every man of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask in time to come, saying, What do you mean by these stones? Then you shall tell them, Because the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it passed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial to the children of Israel forever. The children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord spoke to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priest who bore the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there to this day. For the priest who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan, until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak to the people, according to all that Moses commanded Joshua, and the people hurried and passed over. It happened, when all the people had completely passed over, that the ark of the Lord passed over with the priest in the presence of the people. The children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses spoke to them. About 40,000, ready armed for war, passed over before the Lord to battle, to the plains of Jericho. On that day the Lord magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him, as they feared Moses all the days of his life. The Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Command the priests who bear the ark of the testimony, that they come up out of the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, Come up out of the Jordan. It happened, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up to the dry ground, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place, and went over all its banks as before. The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and encamped in Gilgal, on the east border of Jericho. Those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan did Joshua set up in Gilgal. He spoke to the children of Israel, saying, When your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What do these stones mean? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan from before you, until you were passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up from before us until we were passed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Chapter 5. It happened, when all the kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard how the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel until we were passed over, that their hearts melted, neither was there spirit in them any more, because of the children of Israel. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, Make flint knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. Joshua made himself flint knives, and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. This is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came forth out of Egypt, who were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way after they came forth out of Egypt. For all the people who came out were circumcised, But all the people who were born in the wilderness by the way as they came forth out of Egypt, they had not been circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, until all the nation, even the men of war who came forth out of Egypt, were consumed, because they didn't listen to the voice of the Lord, to whom the Lord swore that he wouldn't let them see the land which the Lord swore to their fathers that he would give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Their children, whom he raised up in their place, them did Joshua circumcise, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. It happened when they had done circumcising all the nation, that they abode in their places in the camp until they were whole. The Lord said to Joshua, This day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Therefore the name of that place was called Gilgal to this day. The children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month, at even in the plains of Jericho. They ate of the produce of the land on the next day after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched grain in the same day. The manna ceased on the next day, after they had eaten of the produce of the land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they ate of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. It happened, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, Are you for us, or for our adversaries? He said, No, but as prince of the host of the Lord, I am now come. Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said to him, What says my Lord to his servant? The prince of the Lord's host said to Joshua, Put off your shoe from your foot, for the place whereon you stand is holy. Joshua did so. Chapter 6. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, and none came in. The Lord said to Joshua, Behold, I have given into your hand Jericho, and the king of it, and the mighty men of valor. You shall circle the city, all the men of war, going about the city once. You shall do this 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. And the 7th day you shall circle the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. It will be that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people will go up every man straight before him. Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. They said to the people, Pass on and circle the city, and let the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord. It was so that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord passed on, and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rearward went after the ark, the priests blowing the trumpets as they went. Joshua commanded the people, saying, You shall not shout, nor let your voice be heard, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth, until the day I bid you shout, then you shall all shout. So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually, and blew the trumpets, and the armed men went before them, and the rearward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests blowing the trumpets as they went. The 2nd day they circled the city once, and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days. It happened on the 7th day, that they rose early at the dawning of the day, and circled the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on this day they compassed the city 7 times. It happened at the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city shall be devoted, even it and all that is therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute shall live, she and all who are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. But as for you, only keep yourselves from the devoted thing, lest when you have devoted it, you take of the devoted thing, so you would make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the priests blew the trumpets, and it happened, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, that the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. They utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, both young and old, and ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the land, Go into the prostitute's house, and bring out there the woman and all that she has, as you swore to her. The young men, the spies, went in, and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brothers, and all that she had. All her relatives also they brought out, and they set them outside of the camp of Israel. They burnt the city with fire and all that was therein. Only the silver and the gold, and the vessels of brass and of iron, they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. But Rahab the prostitute and her father's household, and all that she had, did Joshua save alive. And she lived in the midst of Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua charged them with an oath at that time, saying, Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up and builds this city Jericho. With the loss of his firstborn shall he lay the foundation of it, and with the loss of his youngest son shall he set up the gates of it. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Chapter 7. But the children of Israel committed a trespass in the devoted thing. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took of the devoted thing, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against the children of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is beside Bethaven, on the east side of Bethel, and spoke to them, saying, Go up and spy out the land. The men went up and spied out Ai. They returned to Joshua and said to him, Don't let all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and strike Ai. Don't make all the people to toil there, for they are but few. So there went up there of the people about 3,000 men, and they fled before the men of Ai. The men of Ai struck of them about 36 men, and they chased them from before the gate, even to Shebarim, and struck them at the descent, and the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until evening, he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. Joshua said, Alas, Lord God, why have you at all brought this people over the Jordan to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to cause us to perish? Would that we had been content and lived beyond the Jordan. O Lord, what can I say, after that Israel has turned their backs before their enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and will surround us, and cut off our name from the earth. And what will you do for your great name? The Lord said to Joshua, Get up, why are you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned, yes, they have even transgressed my covenant which I commanded them, yes, they have even taken of the devoted thing, and have also stolen, and lied also, and they have even put it among their own stuff. Therefore the children of Israel can't stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies, because they are become accursed. I will not be with you any more, except you destroy the devoted thing from among you. Up, sanctify the people, and say, Sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, for thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, There is a devoted thing in the midst of you, Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the devoted thing from among you. In the morning, therefore, you shall be brought near by your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which the Lord takes shall come near by families, and the family which the Lord shall take shall come near by households, and the household which the Lord shall take shall come near man by man. It shall be that he who is taken with the devoted thing shall be burnt with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done folly in Israel. So Joshua rose up early in the morning, and brought Israel near by their tribes, and the tribe of Judah was taken. And he brought near the family of Judah, and he took the family of the Zerahites. And he brought near the family of the Zerahites man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought near his household man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah was taken. Joshua said to Achan, My son, please give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and make confession to him, and tell me now what you have done. Don't hide it from me. Achan answered Joshua and said, Of a truth I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel, and thus have I done. When I saw among the spoil a good Babylonian mantle, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, then I coveted them and took them. And behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hid in his tent, and the silver under it. They took them from the midst of the tent, and brought them to Joshua, and to all the children of Israel, and they laid them down before the Lord. Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, and the silver and the mantle, and the wedge of gold, and his sons and his daughters, and his oxen, and his donkeys, and his sheep, and his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them up to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, Why have you troubled us? The Lord shall trouble you this day. All Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire, and stoned them with stones. They raised over him a great heap of stones to this day, and the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger. Therefore the name of that place was called the Valley of Achor to this day. Chapter 8. The Lord said to Joshua, Don't be afraid, neither be dismayed. Take all the people of war with you, and arise, go up to Ai. Behold, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, and his city and his land. You shall do to Ai and her king as you did to Jericho and her king. Only the spoil of it and the cattle of it shall you take as a prey for yourselves. Set you an ambush for the city behind it. So Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up to Ai. And Joshua chose out 30,000 men, the mighty men of valor, and sent them forth by night. He commanded them, saying, Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city, behind the city. Don't go very far from the city, but be ready. And I and all the people who are with me will approach to the city. It will happen when they will come out against us at the first, that we will flee before them, and they will come out after us, until we have drawn them away from the city, for they will say, They flee before us as at the first, so we will flee before them. And you will rise up from the ambush, and take possession of the city, for the Lord your God will deliver it into your hand. It will be, when you have seized on the city, that you will set the city on fire. According to the word of the Lord shall you do. Behold, I have commanded you. Joshua sent them forth, and they went to set up the ambush, and stayed between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Joshua lodged that night among the people. Joshua arose up early in the morning, and mustered the people, and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people to Ai. All the people, even the men of war who were with him, went up and drew near, and came before the city, and encamped on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between him and Ai. He took about 5,000 men, and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. So they set the people, even all the host who was on the north of the city, and their liers in wait who were on the west of the city. And Joshua went that night into the midst of the valley. It happened, when the king of Ai saw it, that they hurried and rose up early, and the men of the city went out against Israel to battle, he and all his people at the time appointed, before the Arabah. But he didn't know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. Joshua and all Israel made as if they were beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. All the people who were in the city were called together to pursue after them, and they pursued after Joshua and were drawn away from the city. There was not a man left in Ai or Bethel who didn't go out after Israel, and they left the city open and pursued after Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand." Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the city. The ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand, and entered into the city and took it, and they hurried and set the city on fire. When the men of Ai looked behind them, they saw, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended up to heaven, and they had no power to flee this way or that way, and the people who fled to the wilderness turned back on the pursuers. When Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city ascended, then they turned again, and killed the men of Ai. The others came forth out of the city against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side, and some on that side, and they struck them, so that they let none of them remain or escape. The king of Ai they took alive, and brought him to Joshua. It happened, when Israel had made an end of killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness in which they pursued them, and they were all fallen by the edge of the sword, until they were consumed, that all Israel returned to Ai, and struck it with the edge of the sword. All that fell that day, both of men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai. For Joshua didn't draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin, until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the cattle and the spoil of that city Israel took for prey to themselves, according to the word of the Lord which he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burnt Ai, and made it a heap forever, even a desolation to this day. The king of Ai he hanged on a tree until the evening, and at the going down of the sun, Joshua commanded, and they took his body down from the tree, and cast it at the entrance of the gate of the city, and raised thereon a great heap of stones to this day. Then Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, in Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord commanded the children of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, on which no man had lifted up any iron, and they offered thereon burnt offerings to the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. He wrote there on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he wrote in the presence of the children of Israel. All Israel and their elders and officers and their judges stood on this side of the ark, and on that side before the priests, the Levites, who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord, as well as the foreigner and the native, half of them in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded at the first, that they should bless the people of Israel. Afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded, which Joshua didn't read before all the assembly of Israel, and the women, and the little ones, and the foreigners who were among them. Chapter 9. It happened, when all the kings who were beyond the Jordan in the hill country, and in the lowland, and on all the shore of the great sea in front of Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite heard of it, that they gathered themselves together to fight with Joshua and with Israel with one accord. But when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and to Ai, they also resorted to a ruse, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks on their donkeys, and wineskins, old and torn and bound up, and old and patched shoes on their feet, and old garments on them, and all the bread of their provision was dry and was become moldy. They went to Joshua to the camp at Gilgal, and said to him, and to the men of Israel, We are come from a far country. Now therefore make a covenant with us. The men of Israel said to the Hivites, What if you dwell among us, and how shall we make a covenant with you? They said to Joshua, We are your servants. Joshua said to them, Who are you, and from where do you come? They said to him, From a very far country your servants are come, because of the name of the Lord your God. For we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon king of Heshbon, and to Og king of Bashan, who was at Ashtaroth. Our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spoke to us, saying, Take provision in your hand for the journey, and go to meet them, and tell them, We are your servants, and now make a covenant with us. This our bread we took hot for our provision out of our houses on the day we came forth to go to you, but now, behold, it is dry and is become moldy. And these wineskins which we filled were new, and behold, they are torn. And these our garments and our shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. The men took of their provision, and didn't ask counsel at the mouth of the Lord. Joshua made peace with them, and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the princes of the congregation swore to them. It happened at the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them, that they heard that they were their neighbors, and that they lived among them. The children of Israel traveled and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, and Shephirah, and Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. The children of Israel didn't strike them, because the princes of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. All the congregation murmured against the princes. But all the princes said to all the congregation, We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. Now therefore we may not touch them. This we will do to them, and let them live, lest wrath be on us, because of the oath which we swore to them. The princes said to them, Let them live. So they became woodcutters and drawers of water to all the congregation, as the princes had spoken to them. Joshua called for them, and he spoke to them, saying, Why have you deceived us, saying, We are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and there shall never fail to be of you bondservants, both woodcutters and drawers of water for the house of my God. They answered Joshua and said, Because it was certainly told your servants, how that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were sore afraid for our lives because of you, and have done this thing. Now behold, we are in your hand. As it seems good and right to you, do to us. So did he to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they didn't kill them. That day Joshua made those woodcutters and drawers of water for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord to this day, in the place which he should choose. Chapter 10. Now it happened, when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai, and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men of it were mighty. Therefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, and to Piram, king of Jarmuth, and to Japhia, king of Lachish, and to Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me, and let us strike Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua, and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, they and all their host, and encamped against Gibeon and made war against it. The men of Gibeon sent to Joshua to the camp to Gilgal, saying, Don't slack your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us, and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the hill country are gathered together against us. So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. The Lord said to Joshua, Don't fear them, for I have delivered them into your hands. Therefore shall not a man of them stand before you. Joshua therefore came on them suddenly, for he went up from Gilgal all the night. The Lord confused them before Israel, and he killed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them by the way of the Asin of Beth-horon, and struck them to Asakah and to Makkedah. It happened, as they fled from before Israel, while they were at the descent of Beth-horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from the sky on them to Asakah, and they died. And there were more who died with the hailstones than they whom the children of Israel killed with the sword. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still on Gibeon, you, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. The sun stood still and the moon stayed, until the nation had avenged themselves of their enemies. Isn't this written in the book of Jashar? The sun stayed in the midst of the sky, and didn't hurry to go down about a whole day. There was no day like that before it, or after it, that the Lord listened to the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Joshua returned, and all Israel with him to the camp to Gilgal. These 5 kings fled, and hid themselves in the cave at Makkedah. It was told Joshua, saying, The 5 kings are found hidden in a cave at Makkedah. Joshua said, Roll great stones to the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to keep them. But don't stay, pursue after your enemies, and strike the hindmost of them. Don't allow them to enter into their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand. It happened, when Joshua and the children of Israel had made an end of killing them with a very great slaughter, until they were consumed, and the remnant which remained of them had entered into the fortified cities, that all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Makkedah in peace. None moved his tongue against any of the children of Israel. Then Joshua said, Open the mouth of the cave, and bring forth those 5 kings to me out of the cave. They did so, and brought forth the 5 kings to him out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon. It happened, when they brought forth those kings to Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said to the chiefs of the men of war who went with him, Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. They came near, and put their feet on the necks of them. Joshua said to them, Don't be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus shall the Lord do to all your enemies against whom you fight. Afterward Joshua struck them, and put them to death, and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until the evening. It happened at the time of the going down of the sun that Joshua commanded, and they took them down off the trees, and cast them into the cave in which they had hidden themselves, and laid great stones on the mouth of the cave, to this very day. Joshua took Makkedah on that day, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and the king of it. He utterly destroyed them and all the souls who were therein. He left none remaining, and he did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua passed from Makkedah and all Israel with him to Libnah, and fought against Libnah, and the Lord delivered it also and the king of it into the hand of Israel. And he struck it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls who were therein. He left none remaining in it. And he did to the king of it as he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua passed from Libnah and all Israel with him to Lachish, and encamped against it, and fought against it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel. And he took it on the 2nd day, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls who were therein, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam king of Geser came up to help Lachish, and Joshua struck him and his people, until he had left him none remaining. Joshua passed from Lachish, and all Israel with him to Eglon, and they encamped against it, and fought against it, and they took it on that day, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls who were therein he utterly destroyed that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Joshua went up from Eglon, and all Israel with him to Hebron, and they fought against it, and they took it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and the king of it, and all the cities of it, and all the souls who were therein. He left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but he utterly destroyed it, and all the souls who were therein. Joshua returned, and all Israel with him to Debir, and fought against it, and he took it, and the king of it, and all the cities of it, and they struck them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed all the souls who were therein. He left none remaining, as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir, and to the king of it, as he had also done to Libnah and the king of it. So Joshua struck all the land, the hill country and the south, and the lowland and the slopes, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but he utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded. Joshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea even to Gaza, and all the country of Goshen even to Gibeon. All these kings and their land did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp to Gilgal.